Tonight, a Saskatchewan man is ordered to pay a hefty fine after his conviction in a case of revenge porn. Also, the price of farmland is going up, and that could impact small towns in this province. Plus, what's in the water? Regina residents complain about a putrid smell in their H2O.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, November 25th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. A Saskatchewan woman who was the victim of revenge porn has been awarded the largest sum in damages in Canada thus far. The distribution of intimate images without consent has been a crime in this country for 7 years, and civil suits are still rare. This was the first one filed in our province, and as Bonnie Allen reports, the judge's decision is being applauded by those who say it sends a strong message.
A scorned lover, intent on revenge, uploading nude pics and videos of his ex on internet porn sites. That was Dalen Heidel's play for years, but he didn't just post the woman's intimate images without her consent. He also published her name and personal details, and now he'll have to pay her $160,000.
I think that she has been incredibly resilient and has displayed a lot of courage in coming forward.
Heidel has already served jail time. A couple years ago, he was convicted of distributing intimate images of 6 women without their consent. One of them hired Sean Sinclair to sue Heidel for violating her privacy. A video of her was viewed 1.5 million times. Anytime
somebody accesses that material, that is another violation of that victim. And so you can sue for those continuing violations.
Now, a Court of King's Bench judge has found Heidel's actions were malicious, flagrant, and intentionally inflicted mental distress. With civil suits of this kind still not common, it's the largest sum awarded in Canada thus far, higher than an Alberta case last year and one in Manitoba earlier this year. Those who support victims of sexual violence say they're pleased with this decision.
We live in a culture that is really about putting a price on things. And so in this way, this helps to hammer home that message that actually there is a price, an actual price to be paid for harming another human being in this way.
Heidel's defense lawyer says his client may appeal or file for bankruptcy, even though he accepts responsibility.
And regrets to this day very much what he did.
The lawyers on this case say this decision should serve as a warning that sharing intimate images without consent could cost you both your freedom and your money. Bonnie Allen, CBC News, Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made his highly anticipated appearance on the final day of the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act. Trudeau says police were simply not doing their job, and he defended the decision to invoke the act to end the convoy protests last winter. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has the details.
3 weeks into February, the convoy cleared out. Something that would have been a lot harder, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau insisted, if his government had not invoked the Emergencies Act.
We heard from various authorities and police of jurisdiction, don't worry, we got this. I mean, we heard in testimony here that there was a plan on the 13th that the Ottawa Police Services pulled together. I would recommend people take a look at that actual plan, which wasn't a plan at all.
Prime Minister, we've heard evidence.
A rebuke the lawyer for Ottawa Police did not appreciate, pointing out there was a plan with sign-off from her employer, the Ontario Provincial Police, and the RCMP.
You also testified that it was not a plan that you or the RCMP had confidence in. Is that correct? At least that was your understanding.
If there wasn't a plan, then we probably didn't have confidence in.
So you can see that there's some content in relation to deployment plan.
Sorry, is this a table of contents?
Yes.
So the entire deployment plan fits onto one page?
Well, a description.
Also revisited today, a conversation between Trudeau and then Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson where he'd criticized Ontario Premier Doug Ford for hiding.
It was a unpleasant situation. There were bad headlines. I was getting grumbled at by citizens of Ottawa every day because the federal government wasn't dealing with it.
The big question that still didn't get an answer today, exactly what led the federal government to deal with it. The core legal opinion it leaned on shielded from the Commission of Inquiry due to solicitor-client privilege.
Would you advise that opinion be released in the interest of transparency?
This is certainly an issue that requires careful consideration and not one to require a prime minister to respond to in the spur of the moment.
It will take a couple of months yet to determine whether that lack of disclosure will weigh on the Commission's final report. Today, the Prime Minister insisted the government was right in using a different definition than Canada's intelligence agency CSIS to determine what is a national public emergency. In February, the inquiry will state whether it agrees. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
Some Regina residents are wondering what's up with the smell and taste of their tap water. They say it has an odor and looks a little off, but the city says it's safe. Apparently, the problem stems from a change in filtration at the Buffalo Pound water treatment plant. The city says it happens every year around this time and that once the system is turned off, it can't be turned back on until spring. There appears to be no rhyme or reason to which areas of the city are affected, but this year there are more complaints than usual.
It's perfectly safe. It's an aesthetics issue. It may not, smell or taste as good as it typically does, but it's still safe to drink it.
They can tell us it's safe. We haven't seen any tests yet. We've got a 1-year-old. We don't feel it's safe for him to drink it until we know, it's completely safe to do so.
The water treatment plant does have a tool of last resort that can resolve the issue, but the poor taste and smell has to hit a certain threshold for that to be used. That has not happened yet, but officials continue to monitor the situation. On the upside, the plant will be upgraded, and this problem should be gone by 2025. The cost of living is going up everywhere, including on the farm. Producers say everything from fuel to equipment prices have leapt. But a cost that slowly crept up for decades is the price of land. And now many say locals are priced out of ownership. Saskatchewan makes up about 40% of Canada's farmland. And some researchers and farmers here blame large companies and investors for boosting prices. And they say small towns could be at risk if this continues. Sam Sampson has more.
Farm work never stops, even in winter. While Terry Bame clears a path to his shop, he's worried about the path forward for future farmers.
This is creating a situation where farmers are really, the cash cow to be milked on every teat.
Researchers say about 2% of Saskatchewan farm is controlled by non-farmers, like pension plans or investors who rent it out, and that number is climbing. They say this trend could speed up rising costs. Local farmers could be left with no choice, expand or get out of the industry. And that could mean fewer people in rural communities.
It's much more difficult to provide services. Schools close, hospitals, the usual, disappear in moderate-sized communities.
Only Canadians or private Canadian companies can buy land in Saskatchewan. The province does grant exemptions, many on the condition that owners rent out to locals. One of the largest investors in Saskatchewan land says renting offers farmers a chance to start or grow their careers without the risks of ownership.
Land is our bread and butter. We have to take care of it the best we can, return nutrients and everything else back to it, and not just mine it. We farm it, not mine it. If they mine it, they're not going to be my tenant.
So there's just a lot of concentration going on in agri-food trade.
These Canadian farmers and academics fight for protections against agricultural monopolies.
Assuming that most people would want to see many more farms, many more opportunities for young farmers to be able to access land, then you develop policy to make sure that that happens. And you might have to actually start thinking about putting a cap on the amount of land that anyone or any company can own.
I don't think we'd want to go down that road. I think when you start doing things like that, that means that then I should be able to control everybody that does everything. I should be able to control a businessman from only owning one high-rise apartment and not two.
When Terry Boehm decides he's had enough farm work, he hopes to sell or rent to a neighboring farmer. His small act to keep his town alive. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Kalonzi, Saskatchewan.
His name is Daryl, and he's helped perform more than 24 surgeries in Saskatchewan this fall. But he's not a doctor, he's a robot. The new Da Vinci surgical system robot is at St. Paul's Hospital in Saskatoon. The $2.5 million robot is controlled by specially trained surgeons. The surgeons' movements are translated through the machine to perform minimally invasive surgery. The government says having a robotic surgical system gives patients better care and attracts highly skilled doctors. It also brings a lot more versatility than traditional laparoscopic surgery.
When you do laparoscopic surgery, it's more straight stick operation, whereas this allows you to manipulate the tissues in much tighter spaces. We can offer this surgery to patients with a higher BMI, patients with a more challenging anatomy. We can do this surgery robotically, and before we would have to have done it open.
Some of the surgeries the robot can perform include the removal of prostate glands, kidneys, and cysts. In the future, it will also help many more specialized procedures, and being minimally invasive means improved healing and recovery times. The robot was named Daryl in honor of donor Merlis Belcher's late son. Well, it may have been opening day at Saskatoon's Optimist Hill, but it sure felt more like spring. These mild temperatures have been a nice break from the Arctic air, but it looks like another frigid air mass is headed our way. Heather Morrison tells us all about it in her forecast when we come back.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. 22 model clear-out is on now.
And Heather Morrison joins us now with a look at the forecast. A lot of people likely having to make a wardrobe change at lunch with this pretty warm weather.
I know, Ethan, it's pretty hard to believe that it is the end of November, but that suspension of disbelief isn't going to last for long. But hey, you know me, I like to start in the good news. Let's start with the current temperatures across the province today, because we're still seeing such above normal temperatures for this time of year. Look at Maple Creek sitting at 11 degrees right now. Moose Jaw +7, +6 in Swift Current. This is well above normal for this time of year. Normally we're looking at highs of -5, and this is not even the peak of what these places hit today. So still some pretty good temperatures. Now the other side of the story today, besides the temperature, was the wind. So now you can see it's really calmed down here at night. So we're getting gusts. So the highest gust there about 40 kilometers per hour. I took a screenshot today in the middle of the day. Look at all that red. We just had a huge wind. It was a jet coming in from Alberta, just speeding across the province here, bringing huge wind gusts. In Cavery, Abbey, the Swift Current area got up to 66 kilometers per hour. So lots of wind. That's going to be dying down overnight tonight, which is nice because we've got some other stuff coming. Now tomorrow is going to kind of be our last nice day here before we get into some tricky weather. You can see tonight got a little snow making its way into the northern part of the province. That's going to push its way through, and then it should be clearing tomorrow. And we have a pretty clear day across the province. But take a look at what's developing over Alberta. See that big low pressure system, all that snow, all that moisture? Yep, that's going to be hitting us on Sunday. And take a look there at the southern part of the province. You see those pinks, you see those greens? That means rain as opposed to snow or mixed precipitation. So that's what's going to make roads really ugly, really mucky to drive on. And you know what? That snow not going anywhere. You can take a look. It's going to stick around into Monday as well. So we've got some snow, and then what's going to happen here is that snow and that system is going to get pushed along, and then we are going to get into that cold Arctic air you're talking about. We're going to drop down on Tuesday, and we're going to see temperatures about 10 to 15 degrees below what we're seeing right now in our province. So let's take a look at our 7-day forecast here for Regina. So as you can see how the trend goes. So tomorrow, not a bad day 32 degrees is the high. See that wind there? Still kicking around a little bit, gusts up to 40. And then we've got that system rolling through Sunday and Monday. And then you can see the temperatures start to drop on Tuesday. Very similar story in Saskatoon, but a little bit colder. So a high of 0 tomorrow. And then we've got that system rolling in, lots of snow on Monday, and then it gets really chilly. And I hate to draw your attention to this, but look at Thursday, minus 31. I do not know if I'm ready for that. They say that Alberta is looking to get its coldest start to December in decades, and it looks like we're going to follow suit here. So Ethan, that is a look at your forecast. So just make sure you do get out and enjoy some of that warm weather tomorrow.
Yeah, no kidding. Clutching very closely to these nice, warm last few hours here. Thanks so much, Heather.
Thanks, Ethan.
Tonight, the National Dog Show Best in Show winner is the French Bulldog.
Oh, David, you were right. And look at this.
Well, someone's certainly excited. This French Bulldog, Winston, took home Best in Show at the 21st Annual National Dog Show in Philadelphia last night. The 3-year-old ball of energy beat out around 1,500 other dogs to take the top prize. And Winston boasts an impressive 78 Best in Show titles in his dog show career, making him the highest ranked all-breed dog in the United States. We're back after the break. Well, the Canadian University football season comes to an exciting finish tomorrow afternoon. The 57th Vanier Cup kicks off at Western Alumni Stadium in London, Ontario. And the U of S Huskies are making their second appearance in a row. They'll face some pretty tough competition from the Laval Rouge et Or, though. It's a team that's won the most Vanier Cups of any university team. To set up tomorrow's match, we're joined now by Justin Dunk. He's a sports reporter with 3 Down Nation, and he'll be covering tomorrow's game as well. Justin, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be with you.
Now, both teams have pretty similar records, only losing 1 regular season game this year. So what are some of the strengths both teams are going to be bringing to the field?
First of all, for Saskatchewan, you have to start with their offense and quarterback Mason Nias. He is a veteran pivot, knows this offense inside and out. By day, he's a teacher, and that's likely what he's going to do after football is done. And then by night, he goes to practice and prepares to be a star on the football field. So he's a guy that's really developed and was the Canada West Conference MVP, well-deserved in that right. And he just knows this offense so well that head coach Scott Flory trusts him to throw the ball a lot, actually. Usually the Huskies are known for being a running team, and Riker Frank is a great running back there in his first year as a starter for the Huskies, but it's Nias throwing it down the field to guys like Brett Vavra, Daniel Perry, Caleb Morin, and last week Daniel Weeb popped up with a big game in the UTEC Bowl on the East Coast against St. FX. So they've really turned into a passing team. On defense, the Huskies are led by Nick Weeb, an inside linebacker who was a transfer from the University of Oregon. Stout dude, can make plays all over the field, and they have a veteran secondary as well. And then up front, John Leggett is a big, strong, physical defensive lineman that helps keep some offensive linemen off Weeb. For Laval, they are a bit of a balanced offense, even though they've kind of skewed towards more passing with Arnaud Desjardins, a talented young quarterback, throwing the ball to Kevin Mittal, who is the RSEQ or Quebec Conference MVP, and he's now won the Heck Crichton Award as well. Had a wonderful season, 12 receiving touchdowns during the regular season, had 3 touchdowns in the Dunsmore Cup, the Quebec Conference title game, to help get these Laval Rouge et Or into the national playdowns, and that's a dynamic tandem that the Huskies will need to stop.
Now, the Huskies are looking for some redemption here after losing to Western in last year's Vanier Cup. So you mentioned a lot that they have there, but what do they need to do to really pull out the win this year?
The Huskies need to make sure that they're the more physical team for the full 60 minutes. I felt like last year against Western, and I called that game for CBC, that the Huskies were physical for the first 30 minutes. They had a lead at halftime, but they weren't able to sustain it. So I think they need to make sure, first and foremost, that they are taking the fight to Laval and not have that go the other way around. And I think Mason Nias just needs to play within himself. He got really excited, I felt like, last year, and the conditions weren't ideal at Laval either. The field was really slippery and the footing was definitely suspect and uncertain for the players to deal with. So it'll be a much better track this year because of the milder conditions currently in London, Ontario that the Huskies have to deal with. So I think their experience the last couple of years going deep in the playoffs, and especially last year in the Vanier Cup, can certainly help them. And they've had reminders all season long around that facility about that loss to Western. Now, they won't play the Mustangs, but they've been supremely focused on getting that Vanier Cup.
Yeah, what added significance does that have, do you think, to them playing in on Western's turf when they lost to them?
They're going to know that they lost to Western a year ago, and as much as they wanted to see the Mustangs in the Vanier Cup, they don't really care who is there. And I think certainly there is an element of wanting to get revenge against that team that beat you, but now it doesn't matter. It's actually an intriguing situation because Saskatchewan played Western last year at Laval. Now you have Saskatchewan playing Laval at Western. So maybe this is how it was supposed to be for the Huskies to finally get a long-awaited Vanier Cup.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Justin. I know a lot of people watching this probably going to be cheering for the Huskies this weekend. So what do you think the chances are that they're going to end up winning?
I think there's a strong chance. The Huskies should be the favorite going into this game for a number of reasons. It starts with Nias and that veteran experience, and that offensive line has really come together, albeit it's a younger group than went to the Vanier Cup last year. I think they're solid there, and the defense, as I mentioned, led by Nick Wiebe, he's arguably one of the best linebackers in the country. So that's why I see them as the favorites. Laval maybe wasn't supposed to get out of their conference quite so fast in terms of this recruiting class that they're using this year, but Kevin Mattel, the talented receiver, has sped that up. And I think they're sort of playing with house money here. That's why I think Saskatchewan is the favorite going in. They were in the Vanier Cup last year. They know what to expect. And by they, I mean the players. It's one thing for Glenn Constantin, who is the head coach of Laval, to have all of this Vanier Cup experience, but for the players to have it on the Huskies side, I think makes them the favorites to win it. But they got to go out and get it done on the field.
All right, Justin, we will be watching with bated breath tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
Justin Dunk is a sports reporter with 3 Down Nation and will be covering tomorrow's Vanier Cup in London, Ontario. And a reminder that CBC will have full coverage of the Vanier Cup on most of our platforms. Coverage begins at noon our time tomorrow. You can watch it here on CBC TV, on cbcsports.ca or the CBC Sports app, or on CBC Gem. And the weather is looking quite nice in London for that game. Heather, hoping it's going to be somewhat nice for us too.
This week is probably the only weekend we could have played a Vanier Cup in Saskatchewan and called it a fairly nice day. Let's take a look at what we're expecting tomorrow night here in starting here in Saskatoon. So -1 is what we're looking at. It's going to be mainly cloudy overnight tonight. And as we push forward into tomorrow, you can see we're waking up to -5 with the wind chill. Feels like -12. And throughout the day tomorrow, it's going to warm up a little bit more. So -1. But you can see there, Ethan, we've got the wind kicking around. So a wind of 21 and those gusts up to 32. It's a very similar story in Regina. So a very mild day tomorrow, but it is going to be the last one as we expect a whole bunch of snow to arrive on Sunday.
I guess it had to happen soon. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Ethan.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/sask, or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Glenn, Reed, and Heather are back with more local news and weather at 11. In the meantime, thanks for watching and have a great weekend.